Hello, thanks for joining this business transformation tour telecommunication. The topic of today is FTTH planning using SAP Business Technology Platform. Our mission is to give you a little bit of context, speak about the large investment in FTTH in Europe and also elsewhere, where the target of the government investment is to bring broadband 1 gigabyte per second to the homes on those areas where it's not convenient for a telco provider to deliver 1 gigabyte speed. So we will focus on planning and what is the platform for publishing the infrastructure during these government investments. What is the context? The context is there's a tender in several countries in Europe where the governments, Italy, Spain, and others, are investing for millions of households to have 1 gigabyte. And this is part of the fund, the recovery fund after pandemics of Next Generation EU. FTTH is fiber to the home. So if you are listening to the BTT telco, I can bet that you know this acronym. Fiber to the home means that you get basically Ethernet, 1 gigabyte in your house, and your way to surf the internet is dramatically improved, and also your streaming. Planning for telco is very critical, because you need to calculate cost before you start digging, because it might be too late. And also, it's not your business, it's not telco business to manage the infrastructure properly, because often you assign to external companies the task of building the infrastructure, laying the cables. So you need to plan very carefully this service since the beginning. So what is the problem that we are trying to achieve? The problem is that when you bid for a tender and you need to maximize the profits in your calculation and estimation of costs, you need a powerful geospatial environment. And in particular, you need a very powerful and performant geodatabase. SAP Business Technology Platform contains HANA Cloud that is certified by the leading GIS infrastructure and the open source infrastructure. And the geodatabase HANA can help you to maximize your profits and calculate your cost at the best. The solution is a solution turnkey, so it's a subscription-based solution to publish the infrastructure after the planning of the FTTH. So a proper planning of the FTTH combined with a publication of the infrastructure where everyone, the country, external and internal in your company is able to follow the application, the deployment of the FTTH through all the investments. The planning of the FTTH is based on aggregation basins. So you need to create aggregation where it's convenient to roll out FTTH in an area. And you also need a very powerful environment to calculate on the fly. So once the cluster, the aggregation has been created, immediately after you need to build the calculation of the graph. And this is why HANA with the spatial and the graph combined in the multimodal geodatabase is helping a lot with that. Once you have calculated the cost as if you had no existing infrastructure, the system also helps you to deduct all the existing infrastructure and to calculate the best path forward in order to reach the household. In Italy, there are 7 million households to be deployed in the next 4 years. In Spain, a couple of million. And in order to make this calculation on the fly, you need a significantly performant infrastructure. The performance of the analysis is critical to make this estimation going. Why SAP? SAP has this data management technology in memory. It has a platform in memory called HANA since 10 years. And it's also, over the years, able to integrate data to bring to the in-memory place where the calculation on the on-the-fly database has been performed. We do have the ability to offer real-time decision thanks to this extremely powerful back-end database where clustering and graph analysis is made. We also have an historical, traditional set of tools, standard tools for any company in the world, including all the major telcos, to do planning and control. So when it comes to planning your investment, most likely PPC or SAC planning is being used. Often in the telecommunication, the telco incumbent or the telco wholesale has already created a SAP to SAP ERP communication in order to deliver orders and to manage the advancements of all the contracts. So it's already in place, a communication SAP to SAP. So building this platform for publishing has in SAP already the natural environment. And therefore, we are going to offer in subscription the platform to be compliant with the investments, with the tender. The platform has internal KPI to be exposed to internal board or member, to all the managers in the network, in the sales, in the revenue offices. From the field on the financial and to the employees to see how progress is on the households that are going to be covered by FTTH. From the external point of view, the next generation EU is very strict in terms of how this invested money is being used. So there is a KPI on progresses in the platform. There are suppliers where the suppliers can see the orders and the field, and it's also open to public with social media, citizen, local government, and other government entities. Summarizing the benefit of the solution before we go into some screenshots for demo, we would like to mention three key goals that I would like you to come back to memorize. First, the estimation is very flexible. Based on spreadsheet, typical planning has an accuracy of 15%, standard of the market. We aim to reach 7 to 6, maybe 5% in the best case of cost estimation. So this is all money because second goal is to minimize the errors. So the maintenance cost will be lower once you deploy the FTTH. And also, often reaching FTTH is combined with wireless technology to bring 1 gigabyte to the same customer, understanding through clusters dynamically created where it's more convenient to roll out FTTH and where it's more convenient FWA, you can use this platform. So clustering is the first item on the show. And we would like to mention the fact that with HANA Spatial, you can cluster in group by, in this case, 7 meters distance between the points, aggregated with minimum points of 2. So minimum points households that they are aggregated into this cluster is 2. And With the tool, you can rechange the cluster on the fly. So just changing one parameter and you run the query in a few seconds, the results of the aggregation all over Italy. In this case is one Sicilian city where this cluster has been applied. So it's extremely powerful. If we see, just to give you an idea, on the black points are the households that are already committed to have FTTH over the next 4 years. So there is someone that is already investing to bring FTTH into the center of the town. On the external, the tender are going to aggregate basins in order to maximize the profit and to minimize the cost of rolling out the FTTH. Cluster is not enough. I mean, you could do cluster and you have a report of all the cluster, and then you can do your traditional way to do cost analysis through spreadsheet. What SAP HANA Spatial combined with Graph can do is also to apply the minimum distance of all the points into a cluster through a graph. So as soon as the cluster basin is being aggregated, you build the graph and you run the, in this case, MST, minimum spanning tree, which is a function to calculate the minimum distance of all the points of a cluster. This is already a very good estimation of the cost that you are going to support in order to bring FTTH to all the others. This is typical of customers that have no existing infrastructure. Therefore, by having the existing infrastructure, the same algorithm, the same graph calculation of costs should take into the consideration to maximize the use of running and going through the existing infrastructure. For example, immediately after, in the previous city example, you have the calculation of clustering and minimum spanning tree immediately on the same query, on the same go, on the run, all over Italy, all over the country, all over the territory that you want to have an FTTH planning. Traditionally, you do planning, high-level design and creation on a region by region, but the current powerful tool of HANA and, for example, Esri utility network can allow you to have the whole nationwide planning and design. A cluster in needles on the map can give you, for example, the average distance in meters. So you see here the cluster number 2 with the average meters of 10 meters and the distance from the center of the cluster of the aggregation basin from the central site. This is just an example of calculation based on street and not on the air, because minimum spanning tree is a rough estimation of calculating the minimum distance between the point without taking into account of the road graph of the road situation or infrastructure. So road infrastructure, existing cable infrastructure of FTTH can give you the maximum details to calculate the cost at the most accurate way. In the most accurate way. You can run reports, okay, 7 million, 6.9 million, all in one place to do reports in the overall 7 million households. In order to do that, you need a SQL query that has a database that is able to run with geospatial information and with very large volume, big data volume. You can run the report and the same query that are shown on the map, on the GIS tool, you can have it in SQL, and this is dbeaver that is giving you the results of the select. In this case, you get the cluster, and each cluster as a point associated. So each point of each cluster is a report that you can get on all the cities. Another very interesting reporting, you can get report by area and the density. So density means that is going to be convenient because in the same household, which is a point in the map, you can have multiple families buying your service. So getting a report on the density is also very important. You could also make a report and show on a graph map the distance. So getting all the distance in a report is also very useful to make the estimation of cost and an estimation of FTTH planning. The last part of this demo for FTTH plane goes into details on how do we build the network graph, because it seems easy, but there is a lot to do. And the granularity of the database is such that you calculate the cluster ID, the distance from the central site where the DSLAM is based, and the coverage length. And this way, all the previous report where you get immediately the results in terms of distance from the closest central site. You can see this, of course, on a web, and it's very, very useful information that you can build on top of your analysis. And this is important to give the internal user the maximum tools in order to understand exactly how, if each cluster, region by region, city by city, is correct, has been correctly calculated. Visual is important. Having visual data on the network planner or the network engineer is one of the best way to maximize the profit and make the planning cost more accurate as possible. You run also query through the web in the same way, and you try to understand in the last section of this demo how we have segmented the graph. And so a single road from OpenStreetMap has been put into the database, and each junction, end and start are being collected. All the relationship with the neighbor, so millions and millions, hundreds of millions of neighbor sections have been collected, all in one go. Because the underlying graph and geospatial HANA database is able to build a graph with the information that are stored from this identification of neighbor section. I hope this short session on FTTH planning have given you the idea that there is a new era. There's an era where you have geospatial analysis that is very performant, all on one goal, everything based on metadata, so you don't need to hard code data, and it's completely at your disposal. My reference for the contact details are in the slide. I wish you a very pleasant day, and I thank you so much for listening to the PTT Telco. Bye.